Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. High pressure remains in control through today and indeed for much of the coming week. That means mostly dry conditions, but also quite a lot of cloud for many of us. Not many, if any, isobars on the chart as well, so that does mean that generally there'll be very little in the way of breeze, and that could well be a problem because we will see some fog at times. Indeed, there's some quite low cloud and fog around for the next few hours across the heart of England and parts of Wales, and that means it does take a little while to clear away. Staying quite cloudy into this afternoon for eastern parts of England, and certainly across the north of Scotland we'll see the cloud thick enough to bring the odd spit and spot of light drizzle or rain here. But where the sunshine is most persistent, highs of 16 or 17 degrees Celsius this afternoon, so that should feel fairly pleasant given that the winds will be light. But across the far north of Scotland, it's going to stay quite murky, so not much of any in the way of sunshine across the north here, and actually the cloud potentially thick enough to give the odd spit or spot of drizzle in places too. Perhaps some late sunshine though for Northern Ireland, so a bit of a brighter end to the day here, but many parts of Northern England, Wales, the Midlands and the South West should see a little bit of sunshine to end the day. But out towards the east we have got a blanket of cloud that's going to be pushing back into eastern parts of England, and as we go through the night we'll see that band of cloud push its way westwards back into parts of Wales and western England. That cloud acting like a blanket, so temperatures not falling as low as they did last night, and there will be some mist and fog around, particularly over the higher ground. Further north though, the fog could be at lower levels, so the central belt of Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland at risk of some poor visibilities to begin the day on Monday morning. That fog could well continue for much of the morning in places like the central belt of Scotland, but otherwise there'll be plenty of sunshine for many parts of Scotland, the far north of England and the far north of Wales. Otherwise a gloomy day to come for the vast majority of England and Wales, and even that cloud thick enough to give the odd spot or two of drizzle in places. Temperatures will be around average for the time of year.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's just 3 weeks left to see how you could be our biggest winner this year. First, you could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxury vehicle comfortably sleeps 4, has its own fitted kitchen and bathroom areas, and comes complete with fitted awning and bicycle rack. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Good morning. The poet John Keats described autumn as the season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, asking in his famous ode, "Where are the songs of spring? Aye, where are they?" On this autumnal morning in London, you're most welcome to Sunday with Michael Portillo for 2 hours of arts, culture, current affairs and politics. Tomorrow is the centenary of Margaret Thatcher's birth, and Kemi Badenoch's address to the Conservative Party conference quoted and imitated the former Prime Minister, and in my judgment was a fine speech. We will discover what my panel thinks. President Trump has been lauded for securing a peace deal between Israel and Hamas. US journalist Chapman Bell will give us his analysis of Trump's achievement and indeed what may happen next. The government in Britain has been accused of causing the collapse of the trial of men accused of spying for China. Former National Security Advisor Sir Mark Lyle-Grant will discuss with me. The Chancellor of the Exchequer's challenge in framing the budget has become more acute with the outlook presented to her by the Office for Budget Responsibility. Economics editor at The Spectator, Michael Simmons, will crunch the numbers for us. And before all of that, your latest news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Michael, thank you. Good morning. I'm Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB newsroom at 11:01. World leaders will join an international summit in Egypt tomorrow to discuss an agreement that could bring an end to the war in Gaza. President Donald Trump will be joined by Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, the presidents of Egypt and France, among others, and the UN Secretary-General. Hamas is expected to release all Israeli hostages by tomorrow morning, and last night in Tel Aviv, tens of thousands of Israelis held what they hope will be the last weekly rally demanding their release. Meanwhile, officials estimate more than 500,000 Palestinians have returned to Gaza City since the ceasefire was announced. Dozens of trucks have begun to enter Gaza carrying tons of humanitarian aid. New evidence has emerged that reveals Prince Andrew told convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, "We are in this together," 3 months after the date he claimed he cut off all contact. The email was sent in February 2011, a day after the infamous photo emerged of Andrew with the late Virginia Giuffre, Epstein's most publicised victim. It appears to provide proof that the prince lied when he told Newsnight his last contact with the convicted paedophile was in New York's Central Park in December 2010. The Education Secretary has written to university vice-chancellors urging them to protect students from what she describes as the poison of anti-Semitism. Some 600 training sessions will be offered to staff on campus over the coming weeks to help them identify harassment and hate and to facilitate open and respectful debate. Bridget Phillipson says the problem is shocking.
Whilst we've got to take firm action where anti-Semitism rears its head, and we've got to root it out, we all have to provide education to challenge much of the prejudice and the anti-Semitism that thrives in the darkness. And that's why providing education for students alongside taking action where it arises is the answer.
4-hour-long delays, that's the warning for people travelling to Europe today as new EU border checks come into force. UK visitors arriving in any of the Schengen areas, 29 countries, will have faces and fingerprints scanned under the new entry-exit system as the EU dispenses with passport stamps in favour of a new digital system. And the American actress Diane Keaton, a leading star in Hollywood for more than 50 years, has died at the age of 79. Keaton rose to fame in the 1970s after her role as Kay Adams in The Godfather. She also won an Oscar for Annie Hall, just one of many collaborations with Woody Allen. Her co-star in First Wives Club, Goldie Hawn, has paid tribute, saying she stole the hearts of the world and shared her genius with millions. Ben Stiller described her as an icon of comedy and one of the greatest film actors ever. You're up to date. I'll have more for you at 12 o'clock.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Thank you very much, Bethany. Elsie. In the week ahead, people like me will be marking the centenary of Margaret Thatcher's birth. Kemi Badenoch quoted her at her party's conference in a speech that was full of ideas and Thatcherite basics, such as the need for a nation, as much as a family, to live within its means. She announced that a Conservative government would lead Britain out of the European Convention on Human Rights and would abolish stamp duty on primary property purchases. Did she do enough, even to attract attention at a time when the focus is on a floundering government and a Reform Party well ahead in the polls? Joining me now is my panel, former Labour candidate and political consultant Kevin Craig and political commentator Jennifer Powers. Lovely to see you both back. Welcome. Jennifer, what did you make of the speech? Well, I mean, first of all, quite an interesting test. Did you hear the speech, read the speech, watch the speech?
Indeed, all three. I agree with your assessment. I thought it was a very well-delivered speech and also one full of the types of proclamations and policies that Conservative members and voters, potential voters, would want to hear. I felt like she won the hall, and that was her big challenge for this conference, was to gain the support of her party members. And on those terms, she was hugely successful. Now, she hasn't yet won the country or even the right to be heard, but she has succeeded in, stabilising that support under her, which she needs to continue.
Have you any idea how Thatcherism plays now? I mean, does it just sound hopelessly old-fashioned, or are there sort of basic bits of Thatcherism, like living within your means, as I quoted, are these still appealing things, do you think?
I do, absolutely, and I think Kemi spoke. I thought the way she termed it was really quite good. She spoke about how we need to return, Conservatives need to return to their values, and how the party got lost during its 14 years in government, and that it did and said things that weren't necessarily Conservative values. And then when they did espouse Conservative values and Conservative policies, they didn't necessarily enact them. They didn't follow through. And so I thought that was a really strong frame, which allows her the opportunity to pull together over the next few years a compelling policy proposition for the electorate.
The extraordinary thing is that Margaret Thatcher in the 1970s was having to deal with a similar situation in that it was thought that the Conservative government of 1970 to 74 had done this tremendous U-turn under Edward Heath and had betrayed Conservative values. So she had to convince people that she was going to lead them back to conservatism, with the difference that there was no opportunistic intervention at the time of a new party to the right. Once Margaret Thatcher was in office, there was no opportunity for the emergence of a party on the right. But anyway, she was lucky that it didn't happen in the late 70s. This is, however, quite a big difference that Kemi is facing from what Margaret Thatcher was facing.
Oh, absolutely right. This is unprecedented. I mean, the challenge she has to resuscitate the Conservative Party is unlike any other leader has had, and what an immense challenge it is. I just wonder, though, if there's another way to look at it, which is there could be, if there wasn't that threat from the insurgent reform, there could be a bit of complacency amongst the party, within the party, to sort of, that cyclical idea that, the pendulum will swing back and we'll get back into power eventually, as opposed to the deep soul-searching that needs to happen, the analysis of what the Conservatives got wrong in government, really coming to terms with the electorate of where they failed, and really that need to think very deeply and carefully about what conservatism should actually look like.
Kevin Craig, I'd be interested, first of all, in asking you what you sort of feel about Thatcherite ideas. That might seem a question that's unnecessary to someone from the left. However, I mean, the Labour Party, I think, was very strongly influenced by Thatcherite ideas during a long period of time. So how do you view Thatcherite ideas today?
I think, so if Thatcherite ideas referencing back to Kemi's speech,
yes,
I think one of the things that's different now is that some of those ideas, living within your means, doesn't belong to the right of politics. And I would argue that Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves That's a major platform, that economic stability. To be fair to Kemi, I thought it was a good speech. I think, and you probably agree because you've lived through these cycles when you're in politics, I think it's a thankless job at the moment. I think being leader of the Conservative Party after 14 years with that sort of defeat is very difficult in these next few years to make any impact. I mean, you remember William Hague was quite an effective parliamentarian who managed to add on 1 seat, as I recall, in the whole parliamentary term. And Thatcherite ideas, let's go back to the buying of one's council house, which was a very personal thing in my family because it happened. But the original idea appeared, believe it or not, in the 1959 Labour Party manifesto.
Wow, I didn't realise that. And yet Labour somehow managed to get itself on the wrong side of that argument at the time.
It did at the time. Now, subsequently, there's alignment across politics that what should have happened is that housing should have been built to replace the stock. But that was a revolutionary policy for many working-class families. So I think she's a very significant figure. She's very divisive. But on the centre-left, because I think the one thing missing from your very good analysis there about the 70s and the coming in after a Heath government is that now, I would argue, there's a Labour Party where love of one's country, stable fiscal and economic policies are part of what this Labour Party is about, and that makes it even harder for Kemi. We'll disagree with that, but that's where I think is, and I think that's harder for her. So to be fair to her, it was a very good speech in difficult circumstances, but Thatcherism, I think those values now don't necessarily belong to the right, some of those.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. What do you think the speech said about immigration? How do you think the speech pushed the Conservatives forward on immigration? Will it make any difference for the floating voter who's between Reform and the Conservatives?
I think that's hard because it's hard to get listened to when the very sort of retail-friendly proposition on immigration from Farage et al. Is so easily communicated. And as Kemi said in her speech, you know, we got it wrong on immigration. We didn't do enough. She specifically said in the speech, we said we'd stop the boats and we didn't. So it was very honest in that sense. But I'm not sure in the short term it's going to be easy for her to cut through. Just the biggest problem is, and it happened to Labour in after 97 to 2010, when you've been in for a long time, the British public, who I think often, nearly always make the right decision, they've stopped listening. And it's hard to change that too quickly. And I think, as you very accurately said, the big next pinch point is May and the locals.
Jennifer, I mean, I perhaps shouldn't be declaring my political views, but I'm the sort of person who would like to believe Kemi. I'd like to believe that it's real, that she's going to have a Conservative government of that sort. But how can I believe when I've just seen the Conservatives in office for 14 years doing so many unconservative things and doing so many things badly? How can I believe?
Yeah, this is the challenge that she and the party face. I completely agree. If I could offer one critique of her first year in office, I would say that the party hasn't done quite enough to own up to what went wrong. That's not to say they haven't apologised and come clean about immigration, but I want to know why the Conservatives censored speech whilst they were in office. I mean, they presided over a DCMS where they actually had a unit which actually went and censored social media in collusion with the platforms. I mean, why is there not greater scrutiny by the party of the Conservatives' own record? I think they could maybe gain more of a hearing if they went into a little bit more detail and were a little bit more fulsome in their honesty about what actually went wrong and how they came so far from those defining Conservative principles.
Let me give the last word to Kevin. And again, a surprising question away to you. But the other thing that, of course, makes me doubt is that about half the Parliamentary Conservative Party at any one time doesn't want to follow Kemi Badenoch, or indeed any other leader, and is dying to get back to plotting and getting rid of the leader. Now, I mean, that's another problem, isn't it?
Well, it is, if you're a Conservative Party person. It's terrible. But I think this lack of discipline and remembering to be humble about what the British public give you in terms of elected office is a lesson that not just the Conservative Party but the Labour Party need to listen to very carefully. And changing your leader, OK, does not go down well, and it's one of the reasons the Conservative Party got such a kicking. And I think, on that last point of Jennifer's, I think Kemi did say in her speech, politics is painted in very broad strokes. Why did the Conservative Party lose? It was the Truss Kwarteng budget, which Kwasi, to be fair to him, says, stop mentioning it, everybody, but that's not how it works. Secondly, there was the... Kemi had a very important bit in her speech about decency and telling the truth in institutions, and the other point was that was a political problem. So I think, to be fair to her, she did a good speech in a very difficult situation.
Agreed. Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed, panel. Jennifer Bowers and Kevin Craig. And they'll rejoin me at noon to discuss what we mean by free speech. Now, time for the Great British Giveaway. Here's all the details you need for a chance to make it yours.
You're not going to want to miss our greatest Great British giveaway so far. You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. With thanks to Marquis Leisure, this brand new 2025 Benamar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. And remember, if you can dream it, you can drive it away. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. The winner will be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 10th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Coming up, Israeli hostages will be returned to their families in the coming days, thanks to Donald Trump's peace deal. US journalist Chapman Bell will join me next. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. President Trump has been lauded for securing a peace deal between Israel and Hamas, which could bring to an end the last 2 years of pain and horror. In the coming days, the hostages will be freed and reunited with their families, with some saying that the president would have been a worthy winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. With me now is US journalist Chapman Bell. Chapman, it's great to see you back again. Does the president deserve the praise that is being heaped upon him?
Well, I think he does, ultimately. He has made it his agenda. He has put a lot of effort into this. Does he deserve the Nobel Peace Prize? Who can say? I mean, that...
No, for the moment, we're talking about the praise. I mean, there have been rallies in Israel chanting his name, and leaders all around the world paying tribute to the president.
Yeah, I think, he has achieved something here. However, what is the long-lasting peace plan? What is going to happen after the hostages are released, once Israel withdraws? What's the future? Is Hamas going to disarm? How are they going to govern the Gaza Strip? There's a lot of questions still. And we've seen big moments in peace before. We saw the Camp David Accords with Jimmy Carter. However, what ultimately did that do? I mean, it did make a step in the right direction. We also saw the Oslo Accords. Again, another step in the right direction. But ultimately, we've seen things fall backwards throughout the history of this process.
Yeah, I think I would argue that those previous processes have been undone. I mean, we're not really seriously talking about a two-state solution anymore, I don't think. But do you see Hamas being required to do any of the things that it's supposed to do, other than the hostages? Is there any sign it's going to disarm, that it's going to give up political power in Gaza? Well, there are people saying today, we're releasing a few hostages, but we're leaving 2 million people who are hostage to Hamas in Gaza. That's to say the population.
That's true, and there are, so many people have suffered as a consequence of this. It'll be interesting to see what all has been achieved behind the scenes and what more is going to come out through this process. Has it reached the point where Qatar's influence on Hamas can force them to do this? But as we know, often if, an organization disbands, another one forms in the vacuum. So, if Hamas does disarm, is there just another one that takes their place? That's what we have to look out for, and that's what we'll ultimately wonder.
Well, I think we certainly do, although, I would even doubt whether Hamas was going to disarm, but time will tell. But, the reason that this matters is people who talk about peace, about enduring peace, you're not going to have enduring peace when the neighbours of Israel are intent on destroying it.
That's true. And I think, one of the reasons perhaps Trump was so adamant at working on this and ending this war was, his first term focusing on the Abraham Accords and focusing on the normalization of diplomatic relations with key Arab countries with Israel. This obviously stalled any of that continuing. But I think key to it will be normalizing relations with power players in the region to perhaps put more diplomatic efforts in place to maintain more peace.
Tell me about these other powers in the Middle East. Powers like Qatar and Saudi Arabia. Let's take this in turn. First of all, allegedly, Trump has established a great relationship with these sorts of countries. Tell me a little bit about how these relationships work, how he's done that.
Well, he's spent a lot of time there. He's made it his point for his first trip to go to Saudi Arabia. He has put a lot of focus on, I think, what it comes down to a lot of times is business relations as well. Mm-hmm. The more business agreements in place. That is strong for a Trump White House. And I think putting his effort of influencers in this region can perhaps help gain more peace and gain more traction. And I think that's been a focus of President Trump.
And when we say that a country like Qatar can put pressure on Hamas, have you any idea what that means?
Well, I mean, look, Hamas's political base is based in Qatar. So, and I think when you look at Israel having an airstrike in Qatar, that could have been the moment where Trump said, enough, this has got to stop. But, it's known that is where their political base is. And, to maintain their political base there, they must have some sort of influence on telling them what needs to be done.
With your journalistic nose, tell me what you think happened with this attack on Palestinians in Qatar. I mean, firstly, it's quite unusual for Israel not to achieve what it sets out to achieve with these targeted assassinations. It did not succeed. Secondly, it was an extraordinary thing to do because it was trying to kill the negotiators, and it was violating neutral territory. It was violating the sovereignty of Qatar, for which it has apologised now. And it was antagonising President Trump. Tell me about that move. I mean, I'm just fascinated by it.
It still kind of boggles the mind a little bit.
Is there a conspiracy theory around this?
I don't know about a conspiracy theory.
A botched attempt to kill the leaders in Qatar. It's very, very strange.
It is very strange. But we have seen Israel in the past test their limits, see how far they can go. We saw their back and forth with Iran earlier, how, ultimately that really irritated Trump, that did not end when he asked for it to end. Then he, of course, sent in airstrikes of his own. But, yeah, it was a bizarre, I guess, piece of this chessboard, but, it happened.
Yeah. Is there any downside for Trump? I mean, if you and I are right, sorry, I'm taking you with me, but I think you kind of agree. If you and I are right that Hamas is not going to disarm, not going to disappear from Gaza, not going to give up its political power, going to fight its corner, then I'm afraid there'll be war again sooner or later. Because, as I said before, if the neighbours of Israel wish to destroy Israel, Israel will have to take action to stop that from happening. Any downside for Trump if, let's say, in 6 months' time, this peace has unwound?
Well, I think, it can always be difficult if you do too big of a victory lap around something that falls apart or unravels. That said, it is a historic moment, and if all the hostages are released, that is a big step forward. We've seen, though, hostage releases and we've seen ceasefires in this current conflict that have not lasted. The feeling seems to be that this is different. I think there will be tough roads ahead to try to figure out how to make this last and navigate any of the issues that pop up along the way that give it the ability to come back up. So I think, is there a pitfall for him? I mean, I guess you're politicians, there's always an up and down swing. But, I think at the moment it's a good day, it's a good moment for a lot of people, hostages, families of hostages, people in Gaza. It's a good day.
And a historic day, like other historic days before it, perhaps. Thank you very much, Chapman Bell. Coming up is the collapse of the China spy trial, a political scandal. Former National Security Advisor Sir Mark Lyle-Grant joins me next. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. High pressure remains in control through today and indeed for much of the coming week. That means mostly dry conditions, but also quite a lot of cloud for many of us. Not many, if any, isobars on the chart as well, so that does mean that generally there'll be very little in the way of breeze, and that could well be a problem because we will see some fog at times. Indeed, there's some quite low cloud and fog around for the next few hours across the heart of England and parts of Wales, and that means it does take a little while to clear away. Staying quite cloudy into this afternoon for eastern parts of England, and certainly across the north of Scotland we'll see the cloud thick enough to bring the odd spit and spot of light drizzle or rain here. But where the sunshine is most persistent, highs of 16 or 17 degrees Celsius this afternoon, so that should feel fairly pleasant given that the winds will be light. But across the far north of Scotland, it's going to stay quite murky, so not much of any in the way of sunshine across the north here, and actually the cloud potentially thick enough to give the odd spit or spot of drizzle in places too. Perhaps some late sunshine though for Northern Ireland, so a bit of a brighter end to the day here, but many parts of Northern England, Wales, the Midlands and the South West should see a little bit of sunshine to end the day. But out towards the east, we have got a blanket of cloud that's going to be pushing back into eastern parts of England. And as we go through the night, we'll see that band of cloud push its way westwards back into parts of Wales and western England. That cloud acting like a blanket, so temperatures not falling as low as they did last night. And there will be some mist and fog around, particularly over the higher ground. Further north, though, the fog could be at lower levels, so the central belt of Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland at risk of some poor visibilities to begin the day on Monday morning. That fog could well continue for much of the morning in places like the central belt of Scotland, but otherwise there'll be plenty of sunshine for many parts of Scotland, the far north of England and the far north of Wales. Otherwise, a gloomy day to come for the vast majority of England and Wales, and even that cloud thick enough to give the odd spot or two of drizzle in places. Temperatures will be around average for the time of year.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Why did two men who had worked in the House of Commons and who were accused of spying for China walk free without a trial? It's a question evidently being asked in the White House as well as in the UK media. The Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, has accused the Prime Minister of lying and blamed Labour for the collapse of the case. It's also alleged that security forces' attempts to warn the government of the dangers of building a new Chinese embassy in London were rebuffed. Here's what Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson had to say to Camilla Tominey earlier today.
Well, we are clear as a government that China presents opportunities but challenges and threats alongside that.
So it is a threat?
Yeah, there are threats and challenges that come. It's why we take a strategic approach to China. And it's why, alongside that, we are clear that this government's number one responsibility is to the national security of our country. Of course, we need to engage with China. They're a big economy, but what comes first is our national security.
Former National Security Advisor Sir Mark Lyle-Grant joins me now. Sir Mark, good morning to you and welcome to the programme. Would you be concerned if what has happened here is that the government, possibly in the form of the National Security Advisor, has failed to confirm to the courts that China represents a threat to this country? Would that concern you?
Well, we don't know exactly what the situation is here, but clearly this is a story that isn't going to go away and puts the government in some difficulty. It sounds as though there might be an emergency debate in Parliament as early as tomorrow. Jonathan Powell, the National Security Advisor, is likely to be giving evidence next week to the Joint National Security Committee. And Jonathan Hall, who's the independent advisor on counterterrorism, has started an investigation. So this story clearly has legs. But I think it's got quite a murky background, Michael. And, I think there's blame on both sides here, really. I don't think the DPP, the Director of public prosecutions has covered himself in glory in this case, and I don't think the government maybe has reacted quite as skillfully as it might have done.
We just heard Bridget Phillipson saying there that China did represent a threat. That is the word that she used. Do you think, therefore, she misspoke there? Would it have been sufficient for the purposes of the trial, in your view, if the government said China is a threat? The government doesn't seem to have any difficulty using that word now. I'm rather puzzled.
Well, actually, if you look at what happened in the summer, because David Lammy, who was Foreign Secretary, obviously, over the summer, he actually presented a summary of what is called the Foreign Office's China audit to the House of Commons. And in that, he said that China represented a multitude of threats to the UK. He talked about cyber, he talked about espionage, he talked about the threats from China to the rules-based international order, to the democracy in Hong Kong, etc. But he said that that audit, which was put together with the intelligence services, experts, parliamentarians, etc., really all the expertise we have on China, it said, on balance, they said that we still needed to engage with China in order to promote the British economy, trade, etc. So, in a sense, there was lots of people in the government and, of course, officials who have declared that China is a threat. Now, the DPP seem to have said that isn't sufficient. We want someone to go to court and potentially be cross-examined and say, look, China poses a direct national threat to the UK, is an enemy. And I think that perhaps the government was a little bit reluctant to do for obvious reasons.
I mean, one thing, this may be by the way, but one thing that slightly puzzles me here is the idea that you can only be prosecuted and convicted for spying if the power is hostile. I mean, if someone was spying for France or spying for Germany or spying for Spain on Britain, are they not liable to be prosecuted?
Well, I think under the original Official Secrets Act of 1911, it's true that you have to categorize the person to whom information is being passed or is benefiting from that information as an enemy. But that's been repealed, and the new National Security Act will allow a wider range of prosecutions and a lower threshold, including that of whether that person, the person who benefits from that information is in fact an enemy. So that has been corrected in law since this case was initiated.
So, Mark, you were saying that this is not going to go away. What do you mean by that? I mean, how far do you think this might rumble?
Well, I think look, I don't think this, frankly, is an issue that much interests the wider British public. It's one of those, what you would say in America is a beltway issue. Of course, it's of much concern to parliamentarians because they feel that their privacy, their secrets perhaps have been compromised by activity by China. And of course, it's of great excitement to journalists in the Westminster bubble. But because of that, I think it won't go away. The Parliament, as I say, might be demanding the opposition parties smell a little bit of blood in the water, and they will want to see whether they can get a scalp out of this crisis. But I go back to saying that I don't think the DPP have covered themselves in glory. You know, the evidence on which they were basing the case in the first place is pretty flimsy, and the quality of information that it appears that particularly Chris Cash in Parliament was collecting was really parliamentary tittle-tattle. I mean, you and I know, Michael, that, you know, serious secrets were not really engaged in this case. And there is a question mark about whether they had enough really serious evidence of malfeasance to even embark on this case in the first place.
I'm interested in what you say about a beltway issue and so on. And I think you said that it was, you know, only of interest to Parliament and to the press. Madeline Grant, the journalist, was arguing this week that actually the UK press has not yet stirred itself on this issue, that the UK press has rather tended to take the view that because the public's not madly interested, it doesn't want to be interested. One of the reasons why I think this thing may run and run is that I agree with Madeline Grant. I think the UK press has not yet engaged in the issue, and if it does, if it throws resources at the issue, you just wonder, you know, what might come out.
Yeah, I'm not so sure of that. I mean, the Times has obviously led the campaign on this issue, if you like. But I think the fact that the other press have kept away from it doesn't reflect the fact that they haven't picked up on the story. I think they think that it's not really an interest for the wider public, perhaps, and for many of their readers. The other thing to watch, I think, in the next few weeks, likely, is the government's decision on the new Chinese embassy in London, because that too is going to come under severe scrutiny now, and probably the government's decision has been complicated by this recent collapse of the Chinese espionage case. What we've also seen in recent days is the Americans beginning to weigh in again. They're ramping up pressure on China separately, putting on 180% tariffs again because they're upset about the restriction of rare earth minerals being exported from China. So they are, some at least in the administration, are threatening to withhold intelligence from the United Kingdom and this sort of thing. So all of that ramps up, I think, the pressure on the government to hold the line, as I'm sure they would like to, of a balanced approach to China, whereby they protect the British people and the British critical national infrastructure and government from the cyber threats, the terrorist threats, the espionage threats from, sorry, not terrorism, but cyber and espionage threats from China, but at the same time develops a good economic relationship with the second largest economy in the world and our third largest trading partner.
Be interesting to see whether the President is briefed to bring this up with the Prime Minister when they meet in Sharm el-Sheikh. Sir Mark Lyle-Grant, thank you very much indeed for your view. Coming up, Sir Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves will want to blame tax rises in November's budget on Nigel Farage and Brexit. Economics editor at The Spectator, Michael Simmons, will join me next to crunch the numbers. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. If you're heading off to southern Europe in the next few days, there's plenty of dry and warm weather on the way for most of us. Further west, though, there will be some heavy showers, particularly across Iberia, and that's just due to the remnants of Storm Alice that's been affecting parts of eastern Spain over the weekend. So parts of eastern Spain, the Balearics, seeing some heavy showers and thunderstorms on Monday. There'll also be some showers across parts of Sardinia, Sicily, and also parts of Greece as well. But many places will have a fine and dry few days of weather to come with plenty of sunshine.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Chu from Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. According to reports in The Times, the Prime Minister and his Chancellor will explicitly link the Office for Budget Responsibility's upcoming downgrade to productivity forecasts, something which has left a huge hole in the public finances, to the economic hit after Brexit. Well, with me now is the economics editor at The Spectator, Michael Simmons. Michael, welcome back. Why don't we begin with you updating me, since you were last here, I don't know, about a month ago.
Yeah.
How much has the situation changed, the one that is facing the Chancellor?
Well, I think what's changed now is things have got worse, and it's because of that productivity downgrade that you mentioned. The Treasury has now all but admitted that they know this is baked in. They received their first forecast a couple of Fridays ago, and that is in there, that the OBR has said, since we existed, we've overestimated productivity growth. We're going to correct that now, and that bakes in, when I was last on, we were talking about how big the black hole would be. That bakes in nearly 20 billion already, so we can be certain that I think the minimum size she's going to have to fill is this 20 billion. And so actually things have got worse, and it's going to be larger than when we last discussed this.
I'm not quite sure if I understood you there. So is the number now 20 billion? Or
no, I think there's the lower...
What's the total number?
The total number, I think, will be closer to 30. I think 20 is now the sort of lower limit. I think they previously were hoping that it wouldn't be any worse than 20, but I think 30 is the real, kind of the more realistic estimate. And actually, she might look for savings and tax rises more than that, because there's some suggestions that she wants to create a bigger fiscal buffer so that this doesn't happen again. In the spring statement and in her first budget, she left herself this 9.9 billion headroom that so quickly got eroded. And the suggestions from the Treasury are that she wants to leave herself maybe something more like 15, which would obviously make the total size she's got to fill even larger.
Yes. I mean, just an aside, so the OBR comes along and says, we have consistently got our forecast wrong, which is now why you, the government, must change all your sums.
Sure.
Because we've made another forecast, which we now claim to be right. I mean, just a slightly mad situation, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit ridiculous. I mean, the Treasury are spitting with rage about this, because this is not like, oh, they got it wrong last time and they want to correct it this time. They've been consistently wrong on their productivity growth forecasts for 10 years.
Always in the same direction.
Yeah. They basically, if you look at the graph, it looks like a hedgehog, because you see each forecast is just an upwards line, and then reality has basically been flat. And I think the Treasury and Rachel Reeves have got a fair enough criticism of the OBR, which is, why did you not correct this at all at any point during the last government? Why have you made it my problem?
Now, this point about blaming Brexit, I'm quoting here from a press article. Starmer and Reeves are expected to argue that if it hadn't been for Brexit, this type of downgrade, productivity forecast, would not have been needed, and to cite official figures suggesting that if Britain had not left the European Union, the economy would be about 120 billion bigger by 2035 than current forecasts suggest it will be. So this is comparing one guest with another, really. But what do you make of that argument?
I think that's pretty desperate nonsense, to be honest.
Desperate nonsense.
Desperate nonsense. Whether or not the economy would have been bigger, I don't see what that has to do with the productivity figures. The OBR's argument would be that, it's an immigration thing. But immigration, as we know, soared during the Boris wave after we'd left the European Union. So clearly that's not been contributing to productivity. And I think the real problem, the reason why Rachel Reeves has this fiscal hole is because of the size of the state exploding during COVID, the money that had to be spent on furlough, things like the triple lock, things like the energy price guarantee. Now, I think even if we had voted the other way and we were still in the European Union, all of those things would have still happened. So I don't see how, this argument, maybe it will work politically, it's part of the Bash Nigel Farage strategy, but I don't think it's based in any truth.
So there's not really a connection here with productivity. That's a very good point. But is it believable, do you believe, that the economy will be smaller in 2035 than it would have been had we not left the European Union?
I mean, it's quite possible. Obviously, trade with the European Union was huge, and we obviously do less trade now because of Brexit. But a Brexiteer's argument would be, well, wait to see what happens with the US trade deal, wait to see what happens with the India trade deal and what other deals we could do. Maybe, that will cancel things out. But I think, really, those that voted for Brexit, they were not doing it because of where they wanted trade to be. It was because of things like immigration. It was because of wanting to control British laws in Britain. So I think it's sort of immaterial. I think, if you look at it purely economically, maybe that we would be slightly bigger because we'd still have that EU trade, but I don't think that's what was going across a lot of voters' minds.
Where's the money going to come from? This morning's paper says it's going to come from the, quotes, rich.
Yeah, so Rachel Reeves says this. I'll be interested to see how she delivers that, because all the evidence on any kind of wealth tax, we already saw this with the tightening up of the non-dom regime, just leads to the sort of Laffer effect where the wealthy will leave or they'll not invest. It's interesting, if you speak to anyone in Westminster, they say there's absolutely no chance that Rachel Reeves will break the manifesto pledge and touch the big three taxes. No. People in the city think she's not going to have a choice on that eventually. It might not be that it doesn't happen in this budget, it'll happen in the spring, but that ultimately there's going to be some pretty serious tax rises. She's going to try to skew them towards the wealthy, but that's just going to perpetuate this doom loop where it stagnates on growth and it opens up this black hole again, and then eventually she's going to run out of people to tax.
Yes, talk that you might go for pension pots, but I won't say any more about that because I have a personal interest in that. Thank you very much, Michael Simmons. I hope you come back and talk to us again as we approach the budget, which is on November the 26th. Now, that concludes the first hour of Sunday with Michael Portillo. My panel will be back to discuss free speech. Should people be allowed to chant from the river to the sea? Stefan Kyriazis will be here to talk about the world of theatre. The geographer, James Cheshire, will be live in the studio to talk about a very beautiful new book. It's called The Library of Lost Maps. And with Diwali coming up soon, I will be joined by sweet expert Suk Chamdal to sample some traditional treats. Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. High pressure remains in control through today and indeed for much of the coming week. That means mostly dry conditions, but also quite a lot of cloud for many of us. Not many, if any, isobars on the chart as well, so that does mean that generally there'll be very little in the way of breeze, and that could well be a problem because we will see some fog at times. Indeed, there's some quite low cloud and fog around for the next few hours across the heart of England and parts of Wales, and that means it does take a little while to clear away. Staying quite cloudy into this afternoon for eastern parts of England, and certainly across the north of Scotland we'll see the cloud thick enough to bring the odd spit and spot of light drizzle or rain here. But where the sunshine is most persistent, highs of 16 or 17 degrees Celsius this afternoon, so that should feel fairly pleasant given that the winds will be light. But across the far north of Scotland, it's going to stay quite murky, so not much, if any, in the way of sunshine across the north here. And actually the cloud potentially thick enough to give the odd spit or spot of drizzle in places too. Perhaps some late sunshine though for Northern Ireland, so a bit of a brighter end to the day here. But many parts of Northern England, Wales, the Midlands and the South West should see a little bit of sunshine to end the day. But out towards the east, we have got a blanket of cloud that's going to be pushing back into eastern parts of England. And as we go through the night, we'll see that band of cloud push its way westwards back into parts of Wales and western England. That cloud acting like a blanket, so temperatures not falling as low as they did last night. And there will be some mist and fog around, particularly over the higher ground. Further north, though, the fog could be at lower levels, so the central belt of Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland at risk of some poor visibilities to begin the day on Monday morning. That fog could well continue for much of the morning in places like the central belt of Scotland, but otherwise there'll be plenty of sunshine for many parts of Scotland, the far north of England and the far north of Wales. Otherwise, a gloomy day to come for the vast majority of England and Wales, and even that cloud thick enough to give the odd spot or two of drizzle in places. Temperatures will be around average for the time of year.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's just 3 weeks left to see how you could be our biggest winner this year. First, you could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxury vehicle comfortably sleeps 4, has its own fitted kitchen and bathroom areas, and comes complete with fitted awning and bicycle rack. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think for far too long in this country, millions of people felt as though they weren't represented at all by the establishment media.
GB News was needed because there literally was no other voice. Everyone was saying the same thing.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
But journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
Charlie Peters, he gave a voice to the victims of grooming gangs, and now, of course, it's led to a national inquiry.
GB News exists to make sure those concerns are put forward and people feel as though what they want to ask is put to those in power.
We don't take orders from anyone. We ask the questions our viewers and listeners want answering.
I know what's actually being discussed by my family and my friends. Us ordinary, hard-working British people have had enough. We've had enough.
They're fed up with the same old establishment nonsense. Everything that we do is opening up conversations that others are afraid to go at. Why are you illegally bringing people into Britain?
That is our job. Our job is to get to the truth.
If it's important to you watching or listening at home, then it's important to us as well.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
May I be amongst the first to wish you a good afternoon. Truman Capote described autumn as the season of beginning. Let's hope for new beginnings between peoples presently at war. You're most welcome here on Sunday with Monica Portillo for another hour of current affairs, theatre, literature and food. Should we be free to say from the river to the sea? Kemi Badenoch doubts it. But what do we gain or lose if we don't know people's thoughts because they're banned from expressing them? My panel will have a view.
What are the 11 scenes you would choose to illustrate your life?
Stefan Kyriazis will make a theatrical return to the programme, sharing his reviews of Mary Page Marlowe and Like Water for Chocolate. We'll go through a tour of forgotten maps that have shaped over 200 years of Western history. The geographer James Cheshire will be live in the studio with his new book, The Library of Lost Maps. And I'll be sampling some traditional treats with sweet expert Sukh Chandal to celebrate Diwali. Before all of that, latest news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Michael, thank you. Good afternoon. Here's your top stories from the GB newsroom at 12:01. World leaders will join an international summit in Egypt tomorrow to discuss a deal that could see an end to the war in Gaza. President Donald Trump will be joined by Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer and the UN General Secretary, among others. Hamas is expected to release all Israeli hostages by tomorrow morning as part of the agreement. Meanwhile, officials estimate more than 500,000 Palestinians have returned to Gaza City since the ceasefire was announced. Dozens of trucks have begun to enter, carrying tons of humanitarian aid. The White House is warning the failure to prosecute two Britons accused of spying for China could threaten the special relationship and intelligence sharing between the UK and the US. It's after the case against former parliamentary researcher Chris Cash and academic Christopher Berry collapsed last month. The charges were dropped after the UK government failed to provide evidence that China was a threat to national security. The Chancellor has signalled the better off will be forced to contribute more as she prepares to raise taxes at the budget. A Treasury source has told The Telegraph there will be no cuts to public services or significant increased borrowing. But with a £20 to £30 billion black hole in public finances, it leaves Rachel Reeves no option but to increase taxes substantially. The source says she is prepared to make so-called tough decisions, but insisted there will be no return to austerity. New evidence has emerged that reveals Prince Andrew told convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, "We are in this together." 3 months after he claimed to have cut off contact. The email was sent in February 2011, a day after the infamous photo emerged of Andrew with the late Virginia Giuffre, one of Epstein's most publicised victims. It appears to provide proof that the prince lied when he told Newsnight his last contact with the paedophile was in New York the previous December. The Education Secretary has written to university vice-chancellors urging them to protect students from what she described as the poison of anti-Semitism. 600 training sessions will be offered to staff on campus over the coming weeks to help them identify harassment and hate and to facilitate open and respectful debate. Bridget Phillipson says the problem is shocking.
Whilst we've got to take firm action where anti-Semitism rears its head, and we've got to root it out, we all have to provide education to challenge much of the prejudice and the anti-Semitism that thrives in the darkness. And that's why providing education for students alongside taking action where it arises is the answer.
4-hour-long delays, that's the warning for people travelling to Europe today as new EU border checks come into force. UK visitors arriving in any of the Schengen area's 29 countries will have their faces and fingerprints scanned under the new entry-exit system as the EU dispenses with passport stamps in favour of a new digital system. Greater Anglia has become the third operator to be nationalised by the Labour government. It means 40% of rail services in Britain are currently run by the public sector. South Western Railway was nationalised in May, followed by C2C in July. And the American actress Diane Keaton, a leading star in Hollywood for more than 50 years, has died at the age of 79. Keaton rose to fame in the 1970s after her role as Kay Adams in The Godfather. She also won an Oscar for Annie Hall, just one of many collaborations with Woody Allen. Her co-star in First Wives Club, Goldie Hawn, has paid tribute, saying she stole the hearts of the world. You're up to date. I'll have more for you in half an hour.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Thank you, Bethany. Elsie, the Mayor of London, Sir Sadiq Khan, says the chant "From the river to the sea" is not inherently anti-Semitic. Kemi Badenoch called the slogan asinine, quotes, as if the homes, the lives of millions of Jewish people should be erased, end of quote. Well, should the freedom of speech that we have and cherish encompass such chants or not? What do we gain, or perhaps lose, if we drive thought underground by banning the expression of such ideas, even if they are asinine? Joining me again, my panel, former Labour candidate and political consultant Kevin Craig and political commentator Jennifer Powers. Welcome back. Kevin, the couplet, "From the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free." I mean, it's a political idea. I'm just wondering, if you said from top to toe Ireland will be free, if you said "Vive le Québec libre," would anyone say there was anything wrong with that? I'm in favour of cherishing free speech, and before we get carried away with what is outlawed, let's just think about what people are saying.
Yeah, I think we should be cautious, Michael. I think Sadiq is literally correct. I don't like the phrase, and I don't like how it's deployed aggressively against Jewish people in this country on some marches. But in itself, there's a lot of debate around whether it is or isn't inherently anti-Semitic, and I actually don't think you could say decisively that it is. But I think we have to be careful because the government recently found it so difficult. Palestine Action was banned. I think they're a disgusting group, what they did, attacking and destroying our military facilities. And then you have to actually deal with the consequences. And I'm reassured that the Home Secretary is going to strengthen, if it links back to where this language is used, she's going to strengthen the ability to crack down on the cumulative effect of disruptive demonstrations that also have a way of making the Jewish community feel insecure. But I think philosophically, you're right, it's difficult to ban phrases, and I think we probably might disagree on this. I think there's never been as much free speech in this country, and some would argue at times too much, but I think we're full of free speech in the UK right now.
I mean, I wonder, and I'd be interested in your view, Kevin, whether Kemi went too far in saying that the phrase implied the sweeping away of Jewish homes and people and lives. I mean, if you complete the couplet, it doesn't sound so much like that. From the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free is not necessarily about sweeping people aside, let alone killing them.
Yeah, I think there's an argument. I'm trying to be very fair to Kemi today and not particularly partisan. Yes. I think she did go too far in that. I think another way of describing it is laughable as a phrase. And I think some of the people who use that and chant it on demos have no grasp of history or the facts surrounding the Middle East. But I think Kemi probably went a bit too far, because the phrase in itself, I think you can't outlaw, but it's how it's used. And we've got plenty of measures already, I think, to crack down on people who are using it in context where it is hateful or it can threaten others.
Jennifer, the reason I've raised this subject, I chose this subject for debate, the reason is that I think, on the right, you need to be extremely cautious about telling people what they're allowed to say and what not, because the response of the left is so absolutely predictable. I mean, if we decide that you're not allowed to say from the river to the sea, then I can see how, a new definition of Islamophobia will follow. Because people on the left will say, well, look, here you are, quickly, banning these phrases. We need to ban these ideas on the other side. Just discuss that for a moment.
Yes, I can see your concern about setting a precedent. However, in this case, I feel like if we take Sadiq Khan at his word, he said that the words need to be heard in context. Well,
Not inherently anti-Semitic.
Yeah, well, what is the context here? The context is that these marches have many images, graphic images of depicting the blood libel. They have pictures of politicians with horns, which again is an anti-Semitic trope. I don't think there really can be any debate that the intention of the marches overall, there may well be people that are within those marches who are ignorant, but ignorant is no defense. Overall, the marches are anti-Semitic, and we really can't be any doubt about the intent, because we saw that they held a march on the evening of Yom Kippur when the bodies of the two gentlemen killed by the terrorist in Manchester were barely cold. If that doesn't tell you all you need to know about the intention of these marches, therefore my argument is that I'm not here to. There's not an issue about free speech. This is incitement to violence, and so one could talk.
Oh, sorry, then it is an issue of free speech, because of course there's a ban on inciting violence. If I urge someone to murder you, that is a criminal offence. So it is a matter of free speech.
Well, my view
Should
is
it be regarded as incitement?
My view is that sort of language crosses the line into incitement to violence.
What could you do about the serious question? How can you address a phrase, words and language like that?
I understand. This is tricky. And that's why you brought it up, because it is a genuinely difficult area to police, not just legally, but as a culture. However, I'm of the view that, there is a balance always between freedom to march and freedom from fear or disruption or intimidation and harassment. And I don't think we have that balance right.
Let me develop my argument with you, Jennifer, a stage further. If we stop people saying this, we won't necessarily stop them thinking it. What is the value of reducing our knowledge of what people think? See, now I would make this argument.
Go ahead.
You can only understand Israeli policy in the last couple of years if you understand that Israel believes that its neighbours want to destroy it. That's the only way in which Israeli policy makes sense. If you stop people saying we want to destroy Israel, which is what these people are saying, you actually take away the justification for what Israel has been doing.
Well, I don't know if I would entirely agree with that.
People who keep going on about a two-state solution, which is what they do, it strikes me as the most arrant nonsense, because the people you're trying to do a two-state solution deal with want to destroy Israel.
I couldn't agree more, and I think that is really shows the brilliance of Trump's diplomacy here, in that he was able to jettison this preconceived notions around the sequence of events that needed to happen. And despite all of the British establishment and global diplomacy saying you had to have a two-state solution before you could have peace, well, actually, he's bringing peace and normalization with a range of Arab nations, with Israel, to bear before that state even exists. So, but going back to your question about speech, I mean, I do think it's about context. And I think if you're having a civil debate, if we're chatting about does the river to the sea, what does it mean? And maybe, you know, I think very clearly it says that Israel should be removed and the Jewish people should be moved. But we can have that debate. Then I think that's fine. But when you have hundreds and thousands of marchers with imagery of blood libel who are chanting that, I don't think that should be allowed on free speech grounds.
Very well. Kevin, in your party, the Labour Party, consideration is being given to a new definition of Islamophobia. Where do you stand on that issue?
Well, to be honest, Michael, all my thinking on these issues in the last 6 months has been confined to the question of Israel, the hostages and the murderous acts of Hamas. I haven't given detailed reflection to Islamophobia other than to know we don't want it in our country, and it would be an easy thing to increase off the back of what's happened in the Middle East. If there needs to be a new definition we saw the other day, fortunately no one was hurt, there was a car left outside a mosque in the south of England, then we have to make sure the legislation is up to date, because there should be no place for Islamophobia. But, you know, the party, I think, you know, under the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary, will take the right decision.
What is the connection, Kevin, between thought and speech in this respect? I made the point a moment ago that if you abolish the speech, you don't necessarily abolish the thought, although that very often is what people intend. I mean, authoritarian regimes do believe that if you abolish speech, you'll repress the thought. If people have forgotten how to express ideas, those ideas will disappear. What is the connection, in your view, between speech and thought?
Well, I think what you said was very important, and I think, again, you know, the phrase, you can't outlaw that phrase. You know, I don't see legislatively how that works. We have a raft of measures in this country to protect when people are threatened from intimidation and violence. And I think trying to suppress, no matter how much you disagree with people's views, if they don't trigger legislative impact that we've currently got in place, then we have, you know, part of this country is hearing stuff that we really dislike. You know, that's quite British. But the other thing that was not British was what you alluded to, was demonstrations taking place the day after the attacks. It was disgusting.
Jennifer, very, very briefly, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you value free speech?
I value free speech at a 9.5, but I think that this is a case of blatant intimidation and harassment of Jewish communities in this country.
This pops into the top half. I mean, this is where you're not a 10, you're a 9.5.
Well, yeah, because I think we have to be very aware of the intimidation and fear by Jews in this country, and it's not sufficient for us to...
And nothing I've argued here is in any way to minomise that.
No, absolutely.
I just thought it was worth debating what we were actually saying.
I completely agree, and to the point about Islamophobia definition, I think that's a very worrying road to go down, because it's not a group of people, it's an idea. And on that, I'm a 10 out of 10 on free speech. We should be able to critique religions and ideas. It's when it comes to people and their safety, which I draw the line and I say no more.
An interesting debate, and Panu, you picked your way delicately through what is a very difficult issue. A spokesman for Sir Sadiq Khan said the mayor is not saying that it's not anti-Semitic to attend pro-Palestine protests. Some people consider the phrase "from the river to the sea" to be anti-Semitic because it's interpreted as calling for Israel to be wiped out completely, which clearly is anti-Semitic. Others argue that it's not what the chant is calling for, and what they mean when they say it. It goes on this. At a time of heightened fear for Jewish people, he has also repeatedly said that people should be mindful of the words that they use and their impact on Londoners, and not use chants that make Jewish Londoners scared. Very good. Well, so Sadiq is clarifying his position. Thank you very much indeed, Jennifer Powers and Kevin Craig. I look forward to seeing you both again soon.
What are the 11 scenes you would choose to illustrate your life?
Stefan Kyriazis will make a theatrical return to the programme, sharing his reviews of Mary Page Marlowe and Like Water for Chocolate. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
It's our notes, isn't it? So why shouldn't the public have to say on who's on notes? And we've had Shakespeare, of course, and we've had Winston Churchill, but let's have something a bit more up to date.
David Attenborough.
A brilliant idea.
Thank you.
Brilliant idea.
No, I've just come up with that, and I thought that was quite good. And then they also encourage ideas, nature, don't they? So I thought maybe some acorns.
Why not a beaver?
A beaver is a great idea, Claire.
You still cannot pass a Scottish note in anywhere in England, and for fear it will not be accepted as legal tender.
It is legal tender.
Of course
but
it
is legal. Yeah, it is legal tender, same as an Ulster note.
Yeah, and see the minute they start to hold it up in the air, I'm like, I'm going to get you.
It's legal tender.
It's legal tender.
I prefer to use cash in most cases, OK?
Mm.
But we're finding that more and more people are not actually using cash, and then the Bank of Wokery have now said, let's get rid of the historical features on it and let's move on with something more modern.
No,
so I'm glad you like that,
They
Norman.
want to get rid of it because it gives them control, it gives governments control, that they can see everything you're spending, everything you're doing and how you're spending it. And I think it's really creepy.
So do I.
The other thing that's wrong with it, actually, buying by card, is that the people who own the transaction between the retailer and the customer are all American companies.
Yeah.
And they take a rake off of about 1%, 2% for nothing. That's all money going out the country.
Right, and by the time it's passed on, if you tap and go, then it's diminished, whereas if you had the physical £10, it's still £10.
Well, it's interesting that we three would like the feel of notes. And
I like the feel of notes as well.
That's four of us.
I feel rich when I've got cash in my
Younger
pocket.
people in general, I mean, I couldn't give my kids money. You say...
You can give me money anytime.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the
because
failure
you're
is
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Stefan Kyriazis has joined me light-footedly to spotlight the highlights and the lowlights of his theatrical week. Lovely to see you again.
Thank you very much.
So, what did you want to begin with?
We're going to start with... I'm not even going to say the play title. We're going to start with Susan Sarandon.
Yeah, star-studded cast.
On the London stage, and this is at the National Theatre and... Sorry, the Old Vic. And I walked in, and they've completely refigured the inside of this theatre. So the stalls have been made into sort of tiered stadium seating. It's in the round. They've built seats and a balcony at the back as well.
In the Old Vic?
In the Old Vic. Absolutely. So this is a huge amount of effort's gone into this. Yep. Susan Sarandon, 79, Oscar winner. I have to say, superb, vivid.
Thelma and Louise.
Absolutely, and I love what she was doing here. And people aren't always... This is her UK stage debut.
Extraordinary.
Completely convincing, beautiful, nuanced. It's got Andrea Riseborough, incredible actress. Eleanor Worthington-Cox, who I love, who was in Next to Normal, but won an Olivier as a kid for Matilda. So this is Mary Page Marlowe. We've got 5 actresses playing the same woman through different times in her life, backwards and forwards through time. And we have got the playwright, Tracy Letts, giving us a little insight into what he was trying to do with the play.
What are the 11 scenes you would choose to illustrate your life? To tell you who you are. Mary Page Marlowe is a play that definitely began with the death of my mother. I didn't really know what it was about, and I didn't know what was driving me. It's not about my mom in any way, shape, or form, and yet something about the death of my mom made me want to write a play about knowing a somewhat unknowable person.
Interesting. So who is Mary Page Marlowe?
So we go backwards and forwards from her as a young girl at about 12 all the way up to her oldest iteration where she's 69.
Is this someone we ought to know?
No. So this is... I mean, I've seen this a bit recently in Clarkson as well. This is a sort of white, lower middle class, just above working class, interior, small town America. It's another one of these examinations of a small, normal life, except she had an alcoholic mother in a very unhappy marriage. She had 3 husbands. The first marriage ended badly. She was a drinker, involved in a car accident, passed on some of that to her son. And basically, we go backwards and forwards between all of these things. And I watched some clips of people in America talking about it when it first came out, curious to see if I was missing something. And they talked about it's a puzzle that we're putting together. It's like peering through a window into different scenes. He talked about, you know, it's just how would you put your life in 11 scenes? And one of the people on the video mentioned it's a bit like a quilt, which always makes me groan a bit, because there's a quilt at the start of the stage. You can see it there on the table at the end of the stage.
I see it.
So it's at the start and at the end with all the Mary Pages standing around it. This makes me groan.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, Susan Sarandon at the end, and she's great all the way through. Her final sort of big moving speech is she's taken a quilt into a dry cleaner and she starts talking about it, and it's different panels, like different bits of her life, and one panel that she loves most has a woman slightly turned away, bit mysterious. Who is she, Michael? What happened in her? And I just cringed. And I've seen a lot of 3-star reviews, which for me is just polite.
Yes.
People straining. Tracy Letts wrote August Osage County, one of the best plays I've ever seen in my life. Multi-generational, multi-dimensional.
So he let himself down here with a bit of a cliche.
Tracy Letts let himself down. Yes, he did, Michael.
Yeah, I didn't get that myself.
You didn't even realise he did. So, yeah, that one's on at the Old Vic, only on for another month till November the 1st. Extraordinary cast, wasted on this. 11 scenes, too busy. But please come back, Susan Sarandon, please, because she was wonderful. So that was exciting, at the very least.
And let's see whether they can find something else to do with that rebuilt theatre.
Yes. Well, I imagine they have to put it back. They put it back because it goes to Christmas Carol. So.
Oh, yeah, of course. Right. Like Water for Chocolate?
Yes. Ballet, Royal Ballet.
Yes, but a word of background as to where this comes from. Where does Like Water for Chocolate come from?
So this is Laura Esquivel, who's a Mexican author. Very, very popular book that was then made into a Mexican film. Beautiful story. And she makes this magic realism with folklore and also with this sense, the weight of generations. So basically the main story, the young girl is called Tita, and her mother, very fierce, very traditional, very troubled, we learn, by her own past. This tradition that the youngest daughter can never leave the home, must stay to look after the mother. So all these lives that were completely constrained and crushed. Yes. And of course, she has a boyfriend. So we've got a gorgeous clip of here. I mean, it is sumptuous to look at.
Yeah, sumptuous and busy, lively and colourful.
It's a feast. I mean, you've got the black widows knitting at the back, and then later on, they are literally raised up, so they're hanging suspended across the back, so they're looming, they're haunting the stage. Mechanical horse with people cavorting and writhing on top of it. A table. So basically, when Tita cooks, she learns that her emotions are poured into her food, and those that eat the food become sort of influenced by this. So one is full of her love and lust, and all these red hands come out from underneath a white tablecloth. You've got all these lace sheets hanging down. There's a bit of a fiery climax in the sense of both words at the end when it all comes together that was a little bit Vegas-y for me, and my esteemed guest and I were not completely impressed by that. The Royal Ballet is an extraordinary company. It's just 9 main characters, 8 supporting characters, 12 scenes, time jumps, dream sequences, magic realism. way too... And normally ballet does not have enough plot. It's an awful lot of pouncing around and walking and processing and we'll have another dance. This is just way too much plot. It's still beautiful. It's an extraordinary thing to see. But, and that one's only on until the end of this week.
What did you make of the performances of the principals?
So I saw Leo Dixon and Mayara Magri, and it's his debut. He's not quite a principal yet. He's a beautiful, lithe, lyrical dancer. She's a very strong dancer. She is a principal. I thought they were both excellent apart. I didn't buy into them together, although that is also due to the complicated story. But I have seen other pairs dance this where it feels a little bit more connected in the love story, so you're a bit more gutted by how tragic it is. But yeah, lots to like.
How many stars?
I gave it 3.
Yeah. And you want to say something about the National Theatre at home? Does that mean what we can watch at home?
Yeah, so this incredible streaming service, $9.99 a month. Amazing backlog of productions they've got on there from the last 10, 20 years. Phenomenal. So we've also got a little video clip here.
This was my home, Billy, just as it's yours now.
You may as well know I've moved out.
Have you told Lydia?
People of this country, we will build the greatest health service the world has ever seen.
This isn't just a movie, it's a whole movement. Get ready. We're coming.
Don't you just love these long, rainy afternoons in New Orleans?
You know, I'm beating myself up here because I don't make use of this service, and it's just the most fantastic opportunity, isn't it?
Right there in front of you, close up, best seat in the house, phenomenal performances. I saw all of those. They're all incredible. And I also want to point out, they also screen in cinemas as well. So you've got Inter Alia, the Rosamund Pike thing that was on, that I didn't love, but hey-ho, many people did. That's in cinemas at the moment. Mrs. Warren's Profession with Imelda Staunton that I also didn't really love, but that's coming up in cinemas. Fifth Step, Jack Loudon, Martin Freeman in November, and then the Hamlet that's on at the moment that I also didn't really love, but hey-ho, that's coming up in January. But you can see these things in the cinema. The Royal Ballet does a lot of this as well. So you don't have to spend an absolute fortune to go to the theatre. You don't have to be in London. All these things are right there at your fingertips or just down the road from you, and I cannot recommend.
And people now have such great televisions. I mean, you go into people's houses, they've got enormous televisions,
I do.
Wonderful sound system.
I do.
So they can really enjoy these things at home as well. How's the Christmas season shaping up?
Well, we've got the big thing that's coming in at the moment is Paddington. So it's not really a Christmas show, but that they're hoping will feed into that as well. So that's the very big one. And I'm interviewing a couple of people from that next week for my other job. And I'm really looking forward to that. And that is the one I'm most excited about. I think it's going to be very lavish. Traditional strong theatre that we need. We need to generate the money. We need audiences in. We need families in. We need tourists in. However much I love all the sort of the higher art side of it, we have got to have things that generate this industry and keep it going. It is so important. So please, go to the cinema, buy your tickets, go to the theatre.
Thank you very much, Stefan Kyriazis. Now, we're going to cross over to Tel Aviv, where the Israeli President Isaac Herzog is speaking ahead of the hostage release expected tomorrow.
Israel is. Many of our enemies, many of our bashers and haters tend to blame us for seeking war, for seeking the constant fight against our enemies. Not at all. As you can see, when we've always said, bring back the hostages, it will change the Middle East. As soon as the hostages are back, Israel is not going to war. Israel is committed to fulfilling this agreement, and Israel wants to seek peace with its neighbors and bring a change to the future of the region at last. Thank you very much.
President of Israel, Isaac Herzog, speaking in Tel Aviv. Those were live images just as he finished his speech there, anticipating the release of the hostages, which is expected tomorrow. Coming up, I'll be discussing the remarkable story of an overlooked archive that reveals how maps have helped to inspire some of the great scientific discoveries of history, as well as some of the terrible atrocities. I'll be talking to the geographer James Cheshire. But first, news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Good afternoon. The headlines from the GB newsroom. Dozens of trucks carrying humanitarian aid continue to enter Gaza to deliver aid to hundreds of thousands of Palestinians ahead of an international peace summit in Egypt tomorrow. The White House is warning the failure to prosecute two Britons accused of spying for China could threaten intelligence sharing between the UK and US. The Chancellor is set to raise taxes for the better off at the budget in an attempt to fill a £20 to £30 billion black hole in public finances. 4-hour-long delays, that's the warning for people travelling to Europe today as new digital EU border checks come into force. And tributes are pouring in for the Oscar-winning American actress Diane Keaton, who has died at the age of 79, with Ben Stiller describing her as an icon. You're up to date. I'll have more for you in half an hour.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. High pressure remains in control through today and indeed for much of the coming week. That means mostly dry conditions, but also quite a lot of cloud for many of us. Not many, if any, isobars on the chart as well, so that does mean that generally there'll be very little in the way of breeze, and that could well be a problem because we will see some fog at times. Indeed, there's some quite low cloud and fog around for the next few hours across the heart of England and parts of Wales, and that means it does take a little while to clear away. Staying quite cloudy into this afternoon for eastern parts of England, and certainly across the north of Scotland we'll see the cloud thick enough to bring the odd spit and spot of light drizzle or rain here. But where the sunshine is most persistent, highs of 16 or 17 degrees Celsius this afternoon, so that should feel fairly pleasant given that the winds will be light. But across the far north of Scotland, it's going to stay quite murky, so not much of any in the way of sunshine across the north here, and actually the cloud potentially thick enough to give the odd spit or spot of drizzle in places too. Perhaps some late sunshine though for Northern Ireland, so a bit of a brighter end to the day here, but many parts of Northern England, Wales, the Midlands and the South West should see a little bit of sunshine to end the day. But out towards the east, we have got a blanket of cloud that's going to be pushing back into eastern parts of England. And as we go through the night, we'll see that band of cloud push its way westwards back into parts of Wales and western England. That cloud acting like a blanket, so temperatures not falling as low as they did last night. And there will be some mist and fog around, particularly over the higher ground. Further north, though, the fog could be at lower levels, so the central belt of Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland at risk of some poor visibilities to begin the day on Monday morning. That fog could well continue for much of the morning in places like the central belt of Scotland, but otherwise there'll be plenty of sunshine for many parts of Scotland, the far north of England and the far north of Wales. Otherwise, a gloomy day to come for the vast majority of England and Wales, and even that cloud thick enough to give the odd spot or two a drizzle in places. Temperatures will be around average for the time of year.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Tucked away inside University College London is a long-forgotten library packed with thousands of maps and atlases. After Professor James Cheshire stumbled upon it, he spent 3 years sifting through hundreds of dusty drawers. He's uncovered some of the most significant maps and atlases from the last 2 centuries and has now written about his discoveries in the Library of Lost Maps. And James is here now. Welcome to GB News.
Thanks very much for having me.
James, when I was 8 years old, I was travelling on an aeroplane and I was looking at the maps because you used to have an in-flight magazine, and it said at the bottom of the map, this map has no political significance, which to me as an 8-year-old was rather puzzling. Then the other day I was travelling on Qatar Airways and I was following the moving map, and when I looked for where I thought Israel might be, it said Palestinian territories. So maps are pretty political, aren't they? That's a large part of what your book is saying.
Yes, I think that's exactly right. And of course, you don't appreciate some of the kind of different national priorities around the different maps that are out there. So I'm fortunate. I teach, you know, in the map library now, I teach international students, and they all come from different countries with different perspectives. And so in some countries, say in India, if you landed in India with maps that the Indian government don't necessarily agree with, you know, you have to declare it on a customs form. And I think today, what's so fascinating and what you've observed is that with digital maps, you know, these things can evolve before your eyes, you know, depending on where you are. In the US, the map may be different from in the UK or in, you know, Asia or somewhere, and therefore you don't necessarily notice the political aspects to it, whereas on the paper maps in front of you, you can ask yourself, you know, who made this, why did they make it, and what were they trying to tell us when they drew the borders that they did.
Now, tell us a bit about the use and abuse of maps. Do you want to, in other words, valuable and horrific uses of maps? Should we start with the valuable use of a map?
Yes, well, of course, I think you would put them both together. So an example I would give is in the context of conservation. If you produced a map of a virgin rainforest, it's a fantastic resource for building a reserve and preserving it. But then if that fell into the hands of an illegal logging company, then it tells you exactly where to go to get the best trees for their purposes. And so if you view it in those terms, then we can think of maps in all kinds of different ways. So, you know, if you're trying to interpret a map of poverty, you know, there are different angles that might be taken on that depending on the arguments you might be making about the root causes of it. But then again, equally, it can help inspire interventions, but also it can inspire where, you know, loan sharks might operate.
Very interesting.
Like that.
I've been talking about maps of poverty. Is it Charles Booth from the late 19th century who mapped what was it, Eastern London and looked at the pockets of deprivation? I'm just wondering, you know, how early on did people think a map isn't just about showing where a river or a street is, it's about showing other things like poverty, like nationality, like language?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and it's something that I'm really interested in. And we have the Victorians to thank for that. So in the early Victorian era, they had suddenly all this data at their fingertips. You know, they were measuring everything and they were doing science, and there was the Industrial Revolution. And so they realised that maps were a really important way of articulating, you know, these fantastical changes that were happening. And so it's about the 1840s, 1850s when this stuff really took off, and the first atlas was made that didn't just show roads and rivers, but showed different layers of data. So Booth, his London poverty maps, they came in at the end of the 19th century. But before him, in the 1850s, you had John Snow, who did the first maps of cholera in Soho and helped to
which enabled him to find out where the cholera was coming from. Absolutely fascinating. Let's go to the most horrible subjects: the use of maps in the destruction of people. Kulaks in the Soviet Union, Jews by Nazi Germany.
Yes, and what I found so shocking about maps that we use for those purposes is taken at their face value, you wouldn't necessarily appreciate that that's how they were used.
Right.
So in the map library, we have many maps that came from the end of the Second World War in particular that had been captured by the Allies as they went across Europe. And so they hoovered up this material, which included shockingly detailed ethnic maps that were produced in 1930s Germany, similarly detailed atlases that were used in Soviet Russia. And they're brightly coloured, they're engaging, they're kind of innovative in what they're showing. And so if you just put it on the table to look at, you would say, well, this is an exciting looking map. But it's only when you dig into the history that you then appreciate who made it, and why they made it and what it was used for. And that's really what kind of, hits you around the face, when you notice, as soon as you appreciate that, then, you never look at it in the same way again. And now that you've said that, I feel stupid saying what I'm about to say, but I wonder if you just flick through the pages of your book in front of the camera, so I'll sort of hold it up that way. Yeah. Because, I mean, it is a very beautiful thing. And just say a word or two about the aesthetics of map making, because although some of these maps are evil and hideous in that sense, many of them are absolutely appealing and beautiful. Yes, and one of the great joys of working on this book was that I had access to all of them, because no one knew they were there. So I had time in the room, and I could put the map out in front of me, and I could say, well, how best can I show this in a book? And so I was able to scan them and image them. And so what I've wanted to do is take the most engaging part of the map, the bit that I really want people to look at, and celebrate it in the book. So whilst the kind of middle sections of the book tackle some pretty difficult issues, I want to end on a high, and the glorious maps of the ocean floor, for example, that really share the kind of colour and vibrancy of science at the end of the 20th century. Well, thank you very much indeed, James. To recall, it's called The Library of Lost Maps, and it's by James Cheshire, and a very beautiful book it is too. Still to come, I'll be sampling some traditional Diwali treats. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
Be nice to escape the grey.
Clear skies, here we come.
As clear as our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. If you're heading off to southern Europe in the next few days, there's plenty of dry and warm weather on the way for most of us. Further west, though, there will be some heavy showers, particularly across Iberia, and that's just due to the remnants of Storm Alice that's been affecting parts of eastern Spain over the weekend. So parts of eastern Spain, the Balearics, seeing some heavy showers and thunderstorms on Monday. There'll also be some showers across parts of Sardinia, Sicily, and also parts of Greece as well. But many places will have a fine and dry few days of weather to come with plenty of sunshine.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Are you panicking when you're in Northern Ireland when you go out and about because there is a lack of chargers?
Well, listen, I'm really pro-EV, and we've had the odd issue with broken EV chargers, particularly yesterday at both Ballymoney at Beasties and also over at Dunsily. We had issues with chargers, but the charging infrastructure is used very rarely. My mother, for example, she has overnight charging at home. She's never used a public charger, and she's had the car for 3 years. Yeah. So if you've got that domestic overnight charging, it's cheap. It's very affordable if you buy a 2-year-old EV, and they are absolutely the way forward. I'm a Yorkshireman. I don't like parting with my brass. I want to get cheap motoring, and for less than a penny a mile and a car for less than 20 grand to start with, it sounds a bit blasé saying £20,000, but relative to what these cars are new, they're incredible value for money, and we're seeing mass adoption. There's a garage in Richmond in North Yorkshire that sells more than half of the cars they sell are electric vehicles, and that's in a rural Dales area. So it's about having that domestic overnight charging and not having to rely on public infrastructure.
Danny, where it doesn't convince me at all is, right, so I'm living in London and I want to go to see Manchester United, and I might get there but am I going to get back down again? Or worse still, if I'm not on full charge, I'm going to miss kickoff because I'm going to have to rely on a public charger somewhere. So is that the sort of anxiety? I mean, you were talking about range anxiety there, Ellie. Is that the sort of anxiety people have? I mean, I genuinely have that. Despite what we were hearing there from Fraser.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. The Hindu festival of lights, Diwali, will be celebrated next week. At the heart of the tradition is gift-giving and the sharing of sweets to express joy and gratitude. Joining me now in the latest instalment of our Taste of Britain series is Sukh Jamdal, the CEO of Ambala, with some traditional Diwali sweets for me to sample. Absolutely marvellous to see you, Sukh. I'm going to start eating straight away and ask you a question while I'm at it. And these are colourful. By the way, colourful is significant, I believe.
Absolutely.
Going to start with this fellow here. What's that made of?
So that's the carrot halwa.
Very good. So tell me about colours and why colours are important at this time of year.
Absolutely. So this is the Festival of Lights, and it celebrates the defeat of evil. Good over evil.
Excellent.
And when we light up and we want to make it as colourful as possible, and so you have a selection of sweets where you share with everybody, with your friends and family. It's all about family and sharing and getting together.
This is delicious. It is very carroty. It's got a lovely texture to it. It's also very sweet. On the whole, what are you sweetening with? What do you use to sweeten?
Again, it's a traditional milk, sugar, and it's all the goodness of nuts, pistachios, or almonds. So we have a really good mixture. And what's the better way to celebrate than have a sweet?
Now, this fellow here, which is green, I'm guessing is pistachio ridden. And I'm an absolute sucker for pistachios. So these are used extensively in this cuisine.
Absolutely. And we can these ones here as our latest creation, which is Dubai chocolate ladoos. So it's got our traditional ladoo with pistachio and kanafa stuffed in the middle.
Absolutely lovely. How long have you been making sweets?
So I started my career since I was 9 years old, and in my father's shop. As you know, we all get together and work together in the shop.
Where was that shop?
This was in East London, in Green Street. And then I developed an egg-free cake, and that business now is called the Cake Box, and we're nationwide with 260 stores. And when the oldest sweet maker came up for sale, they've been celebrating Diwali for 60 years now. I had a chance to go back to my roots, which I've done. And
that was Ambala?
That's Ambala.
And you say it's the oldest sweet maker, so how far back does that go?
So they started in 1965.
In this country?
In this country, in Drummond Street. And they've got stores over the country. And what we've done now is taking it over, modernising it, getting the legacy to continue, launched a new website, click and collect and delivery, and getting into a lifestyle of today's modern lifestyle. You want it today, you want it delivered, you want it collected right now, and that's what we're going to offer you.
So what's the place of tradition? I mean, are these now, as were British Indian sweets? Are these quite different from what we might find in India?
So we do. We have developed it so it tastes to the Anglo-Indian tastes, and so it's a little bit less sugar or more colour. And again, it's the tradition combined with modern tastes.
And what will you be doing on Diwali? How will your day proceed?
Absolutely. So what we, like everybody else, family gets together, and the highlight's going to be fireworks in the evening.
Yes. I've been to many Diwali celebrations. So it's as the evenings are closing in. It gets dark relatively early. So everyone goes outside. You have some sort of central light, do you?
That's correct. So the house is lit up with little divas, which are little tea lights type.
Yes.
And then we light up the sky with the fireworks.
How lovely. What time of day will you be doing that?
So as soon as it gets dark,
yeah, so the
about 8 o'clock.
children can join in.
That's correct.
That's very important. And will there be sweets present at that time?
Absolutely. So you've got the samosas, your savouries, you've got your sweets, you've got your pakoras. You're going to have all the delights of an Indian feast.
Mm. And the giving of gifts on this occasion is an absolutely essential part of it.
Correct. And so we'll go around other people's houses, we'll take a box of sweets with us, and to celebrate the sweetness of the occasion.
Mm-hmm. The bright colours, we've talked about green, we've talked about red. How do you achieve a bright yellow?
So that yellow is with food colouring, and that's made out of pure milk, paneer. We'll put the colour that's required.
Absolutely fantastic. I hope you have a wonderful Diwali. Which day is it?
It's going to be on Monday the 20th.
And thank you very much for sharing these delicious sweets. And good luck with your takeover of that old sweet maker, Umbala.
Great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Sue. And I thank all my guests for joining me today to share heartfelt conversation and debate. I'll be back at the same time next week. Coming up next on GB News is The Weekend with Dawn Neeson. Dawn, what's coming up on your show?
A cracking show. I love we all got the turquoise blue memo today. You look actually gorgeous in it. I'm not sure about me, but we've got an amazing show coming up for you, so don't miss a second of it. We are talking about whether has Donald Trump put our Prime Minister to shame. We've got a great debate on that one. Why little girls in East London aren't allowed to take part in a fun run. How mean can you possibly get? And Rachel Reeves' cunning plans for the budget, which seem to consist of eating the rich or something like that. Anyways, cracking show. We'll see you very soon after the weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. So high pressure remains in control of the UK's weather. That means it's going to be staying dry for the vast majority of us through the next few days. There will be a lot of low cloud around, and that does mean it's going to be gloomy at times. But towards the northern and the western peripheries of the area of high pressure, that's where we're most likely to see some sunshine at times. Through the course of this evening then, generally towards the north and the west of the UK is where we'd like to see the clearest conditions. And potentially in the countryside, we will see some mist and fog patches developing once again through the course of the night, turning chilly where the skies stay clear. So Northern Ireland and Scotland could see a touch of frost in some rural areas. But down across England and Wales, that's where we like to see skies cloud over. And as we go through the course of the night, that cloud potentially may bring a few spots of light rain and drizzle in places as well. So a bit of a murky start across the higher ground of places like the moors in the southwest and the south of England, some drizzle in places too, but a much milder start compared to on Sunday. Running into sunnier skies across northern parts of Wales, parts of northern England sticking out above that cloud sheet as well. But across Scotland, some fog across the central belt and other parts of lowland parts of Scotland as well. Otherwise, once that fog clears on Monday morning, there should be plenty of sunshine across many inland parts of mainland Scotland, so a fine day to come here. The sunshine also affecting the far north of England and maybe Northern Ireland too. But the vast majority of England and Wales will have quite a gloomy day. That cloud very stubborn to lift and break, so much cloudier compared to on Sunday, and even the odd spot or two of light rain or drizzle in places too. Temperatures will be around average for the time of year, around 15 to 17 degrees Celsius for most of us. As we go in through the rest of the week, it's generally going to stay very similar, so we are expecting to see quite a lot of cloud around for most of us, and that cloud is going to be thick enough to give the odd spot or two of light drizzle at times. The best of any brighter breaks or sunny spells out towards the west, and temperatures will remain around average for the time of year.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's just 3 weeks left to see how you could be our biggest winner this year. First, you could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxury vehicle comfortably sleeps 4, has its own fitted kitchen and bathroom areas, and comes complete with fitted awning and bicycle rack. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington